Most of us never question the negative thoughts in our head. But when those thoughts spiral and then we lose our confidence, we lose our happiness, we lose our peace, and we lose our joy, it's time to do something different. Today, we're talking with Dr. Seth Gillihan, who's an expert on cognitive behavioral therapy. He's going to teach us how to challenge our negative automatic thoughts and get out of the spiral they create. If your thoughts have ever run the show, make sure you hit subscribe because we talk about how to live a happy and mindful life every week here on Good Mood Revolution. Welcome to the show. Seth, welcome to Good Mood Revolution.
Thanks for having me, Matt. It's nice to be with you.
So for the listener that's not familiar, what is cognitive behavioral therapy?
Well, it's a way of understanding how your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions all fit together. Because when you can understand how your thoughts influence your feelings, how your feelings color your actions and your thoughts, and how your actions feed back into your emotions and your thoughts or beliefs, then you can work with each of those elements in a more effective way so that you can move toward your goals, feel better, have better relationships. And really, it's been tested and applied to all kinds of things and found to be helpful.
Yeah. In your book, you claim that cognitive behavioral therapy is at least as good as antidepressant medication in trials on people's recovery from unhappiness and negative thoughts and negative feelings.
That's right. Yeah, that tends to be true, which I think a lot of people are surprised by because the perspective tends to be like, well, medication is the real treatment. And then maybe you can do some talk therapy around that to kind of support the heavy hitter. But yeah, side by side, they tend to look the same. Again, on average, it varies from person to person. And there are a good number of trials showing that in the long term, if you take away the treatment, so after antidepressant medication treatment or after cognitive behavioral therapy, that you tend to have more lasting effects having had the therapy, I think for obvious reasons, because you take the treatment with you.
Yeah. What about the negative side effects of cognitive behavioral therapy?
Right. Yeah, it's another good point. I mean, it wouldn't be fair to say there are no unwanted side effects. If you think of difficult emotions as being, uncomfortable emotions, maybe getting into some psychological territory that you hadn't expected going into treatment, those are possible side effects. But right, you don't tend to see the profile like you do with a medication where you might have nausea, headaches, real kind of adjustment period as you're ramping up and having to think about a withdrawal period as you're tapering off.
One of the things and this is different than traditional talk therapy. And that's, and so if somebody's not familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy, it's not like the Freud style where you analyze your childhood for session after session after session. It's more about what we're experiencing now. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, it tends to be focused on the here and now. Like, what are the symptoms that are giving you trouble currently? That said, we do, we'll talk about people's childhoods and some of the patterns that probably developed early on, some of the longstanding and deeply held beliefs, what we call core beliefs, often developed in childhood and often out of some of the struggles that a person might have as a kid. But as you're saying, we're not going to spend a lot of time kind of going over the same ground or just responding with how does that make you feel, or a more kind of strictly supportive approach like we might have in a kind of general talk therapy or counseling session.
So as we're making cognitive behavioral therapy simple, one of the things you talk about are these things called negative automatic thoughts. What's an example of a negative automatic thought that you sometimes will have?
Well, I mean, an example could be I'm on a podcast, for example, and someone asks me a question and I start to answer it, and then I think like, oh, this doesn't make any sense, or he thinks this is going on for too long. And so that kind of automatic thought then could prompt me to get distracted by it and think like, oh, like now I'm thinking about two things, like what I'm trying to say about, I don't know, CBT, for example, and also what the host might think of me or what the audience is thinking of me. So in CBT, we learn to recognize those negative automatic thoughts, because if I'm not used to recognizing thoughts, I'll probably just take them at face value. And rather than realizing, oh, I just had a thought that I'm having, that I'm giving a dumb answer, I'll just think like, this is a dumb answer. Like I'll just read the thought as a direct point of contact with reality. Like, this is something true about what's happening, is I sound like an idiot. But when you recognize like, oh, like I sound like an idiot is just it's an event that happened in my mind. Maybe it's true. Like I sound like an idiot sometimes, but maybe it's not true. Then I don't have to get so hung up on it, and I can just dismiss it and hopefully move on and come back to the conversation I'm having with, I don't know, Matt or someone.
Why do you call them automatic thoughts?
Well, I mean, the most honest answer is because that's how I learned them, and I think that's how Aaron Beck, one of the main developers of CBT, that's what he called them. I'm imagining he called them that because it takes no effort to think of them or to come up with them. There's no deliberation involved. Like, how should I think about that ambiguous expression that I'm perceiving on the face of my listener? I'm not talking about you at this point. You actually have a very warm and open expression, which makes it easier as a guest. But if someone, has their arms crossed or sort of looking a little dubious, then my mind can automatically come up with all kinds of negative interpretations of that. Unfortunately, for most of us, the first interpretation is probably not like, they look serious. I bet they're thinking like, this person is such a genius. And they're totally blown away, right? Like our minds just don't tend to go there. Or wow, I've never heard anything so profound. That was what I loved about your definition of negative automatic thoughts. And you may have quoted Dr. Beck directly, but it was, they take no effort. We don't have to put effort into thinking these negative thoughts. They just show up spontaneously. Whether we want them or not. No effort on our part. So this is why we call them negative automatic thoughts. Automatically, we're going to think this. And your book says that the main strategy to break these thought patterns is to compare the negative thought to reality. Could we take an example of how to do this, how to take one of these negative automatic thoughts and then what it looks like to compare that thought to reality, just to give our listener who has negative automatic thoughts? They do. I do. We all do. So that we can try to figure out how to break some of these thought patterns. Yeah, I'd love to. Would you be willing, we hadn't planned this, but would you be willing to offer an example from your own life and then I can walk it through with you? Absolutely. So I was doing the work in the book, and what the book said was that these negative automatic thoughts typically come from a core belief. So this morning I played basketball, and on my way over to basketball, I had some negative automatic thoughts like, I might not shoot well today. And that was one of them. And then as I'm getting in the game and we end up losing the first 3 games we played, and these negative automatic thoughts were coming into my mind. I'm playing poorly. So those are great examples to think about. Let's start with the first one. So on the ride over, your mind thinks, would you say I'm going to shoot badly? I'm going to shoot poorly today. I'm going to shoot poorly today. So that's an interesting one because it's a prediction, and it could be true, right? I'm guessing there are days when you do shoot worse than others. Is that right? Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I highlight that at the outset because as you know, we don't want a person to assume that their job is just to convince themselves that everything is going to be great, because, well, it's not true. And a person knows that, right? So if I try to convince myself like, No, you're not. You're going to shoot awesome. Then my mind is probably just going to come back with, but what if you don't? Like, you might not. I'm watching some of the NBA finals during this period. I happen to be from Indiana. And, some players and some teams don't shoot as well some days as others. So we'd want to recognize that this is a prediction. So it's what we would call fortune telling. And you don't have to try to talk yourself out of it. Generally, I recommend that a person say, like, all right, acknowledge it's a possibility, but recognize it as a thought, as a prediction, not as something that's actually true. So you're finding that balance between acknowledging that something is possible, but not necessarily, but predicting it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to happen. So that's the first one. With the second one, I'm playing badly.
Yeah.
Was that true?
So this is what's interesting. As I'm getting ready for this podcast today, I asked myself the same question.
Yeah.
And what I came up with was, no, actually, I'm playing pretty well. So the negative automatic thought, though, because we lost 3 games, it jumped to the conclusion that we lost those games because I was playing bad.
Isn't that interesting? So your brain was quick and, again, effortlessly automatic to conclude that you were the reason. You were kind of personalizing that loss. When in fact, I was actually scoring many points, and my efficiency between the shots I took and what went in was really high. I was making good decisions and playing good defense. Like, overall, it was a really solid performance. Our team was just being beat by a complete team of 5 players that was playing better than our complete team of 5 players. Right. Great. So how did you get there? Like, it sounds like you had a kind of at least implicit step-by-step process of looking at the evidence for and against your automatic thought, right?
Because I'm reading your book. So
yeah, well, let's start with the evidence for. Like, what was the evidence that supported the idea that Matt is playing poorly?
The evidence that supported, I didn't make every single shot I took, and we lost the games.
So how strong is each of those bits of evidence? Like what percentage were you shooting, would you say?
I was over 50, so maybe 60%.
And in your league, is that considered poor?
No, that's good anywhere.
All right. So that one...
That's good. That's good for pro players.
Okay. So that would seem initially like a piece of evidence for the negative automatic thought. It sounds like it was actually evidence against it when you dug deeper.
So now it's not automatic that I have the positive side of it. So once I started to collect the evidence that was contrary to the negative automatic thought that I'm playing poorly and I'm going to shoot poorly, I started to say, well, actually, I'm shooting really well. It just wasn't it didn't automatically come to mind. I had to think about it consciously. About how am I actually doing in reality here?
Yeah, exactly. And then what was the other evidence for your automatic thought? So you thought you were shooting poorly.
Yeah, because I missed some shots.
You missed some shots.
I didn't make. I missed 40% of them. So that's a number of shots that didn't fall.
Oh, and you lost.
And we lost the games.
That's interesting. So the other piece of evidence was just a circular. It's just like A, and then an arrow to B, and B says CA, right? Like, so we lost. What's the evidence for that? Well, we lost. So it must have been my fault.
Yeah.
So then you looked at the evidence against, and it sounds like you found quite a lot to suggest that really the fact that you lost had nothing to do with you.
Well, but this isn't completely true. What if I had made every single shot? And that happens some days. Some days you get unconsciously on fire and you don't miss. We might have won. So could I have been a superhuman player today and just started to shoot unconsciously well? Yeah. And we could have won if I had played even better than I played.
Man, great point. I'm really glad you brought it up, because this kind of thing comes up in a lot of different domains. I mean, certainly in sports, you say you have an awesome game, but you miss like a last second tie, game that would have won the game, last second shot.
Yeah.
It's hard to deny that if not for your actions, or if your actions had been different, you would have won. So we can always say that about, or almost always say that about almost anything, that like, could I have done more? Like, you can pretty much always say yes to that question.
Mm-hmm.
And this comes up in things with higher stakes. Like this, I talked about this when a good friend of mine had ended his life by suicide. And I was talking with my dad.
I'm so sorry, Seth.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this was probably 8 years ago. Yeah, almost exactly. And I was talking to my dad about it because his dad, my grandfather, also died by suicide when my dad was a young man. And so my dad said, I was saying like, I wish that I had, returned more of his calls and, spent more time with him, and, maybe could have helped him through this, whatever he was going through. And my dad said, well, you can, like, if you ask yourself the question, like, could I have done more? The answer will always be yes. Yes, I could have done more. But the real question that you're getting at is the fact that my friend took his life my fault? And the answer to that is almost certainly no. So it's, again, our minds are tricky, and they can convince us of things that just aren't true by these leaps of logic. Like, well, yeah, I could have, like, there was a time when my friend called and I wanted to hang out and I couldn't hang out. And maybe I could have, maybe that would have, like, stood in the gap of whatever it was that he needed. But again, those things, they sort of drive you crazy, and for no good reason, because again, like that is not, like that's not answering the question that you're actually asking, which is it my fault to my friend? Did he do this because of me? And the answer is no.
I really like your methods here. And you recommend, after we collect this evidence for and this evidence against the negative automatic thought, that then we come up with a more accurate and helpful way of looking at the situation.
Yeah.
But we don't want an affirmation that completely denies the negative thought at all, because then we won't believe it. So, for instance, on my way into basketball, when I had the thought, I'm probably not going to shoot very well today, I didn't just automatically start saying, no, I'm going to be on fire, I'm going to be amazing, because I wasn't actually feeling that way.
Yeah.
Right. So I wouldn't have believed it anyway. So what is an example of maybe a more helpful way? We're talking about a pretty serious subject here, losing a friend to suicide. What's an example of a more helpful way that you could look at that situation once you realize that you had the negative automatic thoughts, that maybe you could have done more, and maybe some guilt around that? How could you reframe that situation?
Yeah. I appreciate that, Matt. It brings up another cognitive distortion, kind of thinking error that we often fall into, which is shoulding. So, saying to myself, like, I should have done more. I should have been a better friend. And a more realistic way of looking at that, and I think a more compassionate, self-compassionate perspective, is, I wish that I had done more. I wish that I had been more available. There were reasons that I wasn't, that had to do with my own health for the most part, but anytime we're dealing with a should, like I should work out more, or I should be more disciplined, those types of statements, they don't actually tend to be very motivating. They tend to feel more just like something that we whip ourselves with, but then they don't provide any real pathway forward. So we want to, again, shift those to something that's more actionable, for one thing, but also more specific. So rather than saying I should start working out, I could say I plan to start going to the gym once a week, Wednesday mornings. Like something that gets out of, should has a kind of almost like a resignation to it. Like, yeah, I should start meditating. I should but I'm sort of off the hook because like, yeah, I should, but I know I'm not going to.
It sounds like there's a word that my good friend Adam Roach told me he outlawed in his house, and it was the word can't.
Yeah.
And I thought that was wonderful. So I talked with my kids about it. I said, hey, we're not going to say the word can't. And I was pretty on it for a few years that anytime they would say they can't do something, I would say, well, let's not use that word. What's another way we could phrase this? Could be another one of those words for us. That the word should, if I can catch it in myself saying it, is one of the words I could outlaw for myself. Because as I say, like you said, I should maybe be more compassionate, or I should be more available, or I should be more present. Instead, notice when I'm saying these things and say, I'm going to commit to being more present. I'm going to do it in this specific way, that when I'm with someone, I'm going to turn my phone on airplane mode.
Yeah. And that awareness that you're describing is so much of this, is starting to notice the way that we talk to ourselves, how that influences our feelings and our actions. And then as you're describing, coming up with more deliberate, more intentional language that nudges you in a more constructive direction.
In your particular method and what you teach and how you work with your patients and clients, it has a lot to do with mindfulness. This is my favorite quote of the book. You said the mind has a tendency to, 1, focus on things other than what is happening right now, and 2, evaluate if things are good or bad. And as we do this, we miss this once in a lifetime opportunity to be right here. Can you describe what that means about how the mind has a tendency to focus on things other than what's happening?
Well, I can describe what's happening right now, which is, I'm sitting in Pennsylvania looking at a screen that Matt's picture is on. You're looking back at me. I've never met you before. I've never had this interaction with you before. And I don't know if I'll speak with you again. Like, this is what's actually happening right now. And I actually feel a lot of tenderness as I realize that. Like, that this experience that I could just sort of kind of skim over or focus on the more like self-exposure aspects of it. Like, again, how am I coming across? How do I sound? What do I have to do after this? I could miss this possibly once in a life. I mean, it is a once in a lifetime opportunity for today. Like, never again on today's date at this hour will this thing ever happen. So that is something that I would invite anyone who's listening to this to do right now, is also to take note of, like, what is actually happening right now, aside from judgments about it, or wishes or shoulds about it, or thoughts about what's happened in the past or what happens next. Like, what's actually happening right now? And one of the best parts of that is that usually often what emerges is a kind of joy. It's like, even if things aren't perfect right now, it's kind of okay when I'm actually just in what's actually happening, as opposed to the story around it and what it means and what happens next and how long it's going to last and all that.
Oh, so beautifully said. My wife and I have 4 kids.
Nice.
And it's a lot of work. And anytime I can become present to this moment with my child, this child that's here right in front of me at this moment.
Yeah.
This is the only time they will be this age.
Yeah.
It's the only day. Tomorrow they'll be a day older.
Yeah.
Next year they'll be saying words in complete sentences. And then in just a few short years, one's going to be driving and then she'll be off to college. So any moment I get out of I'm so tired and I have to make dinner again, and I got to do the dishes, and I start thinking about all the things that I have to do rather than just being present in the moment. if I can come back to this as an opportunity. My wife said something to me when my daughter said, hey, can I sit on your lap? And she's 7. And I'm trying to eat my dinner. And I'm thinking, you're too old to sit on my lap. And I want to eat my dinner. And my wife said, this might be the last time she ever asks to sit on your lap. And I'm like, get over here. Come sit, come sit on my lap. This might be the last time. And there's always a last time with a child that they ask to be picked up, that they ask to be rocked to sleep. We just don't know when that last time is. But I think it's really beautiful that you said just this conversation here. Like you're this amazing author that's changed all these lives. And it's such an honor for me just to have you come share your wisdom. I agree. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Well, thank you, Matt. And I have, I can tell you're a kind person. I have no doubt you're a great dad. And coincidentally, just this morning, I felt so surprised and lucky that our middle schooler wants us or allows us to walk her to school once a week. My wife one day and me another day. So my day is Thursday. So today was possibly and probably the last time that would ever happen. It's her last day of 8th grade, high school. The schedule might not work out because it's so early. So this was a rare time where you realized, like, oh my goodness, like this might be our last walk, to school together. But as you said, the poignancy of realizing that most of the time you don't know when the last time will be. And if you don't mind my asking, how old are your kids?
11, 9, 7, and 3.
Wow. So you've got quite a range.
Which is awesome. Because I know from how far the 11-year-old is, how quick the 3-year-old will be through all of these stages.
Yeah. Great point.
So I'm like, we just savor it. We're like savoring all the lasts.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And that for me is so much of what mindfulness is about. There's the kind of clinical side of it, which helps with depression and anxiety and that sort of thing. But the nice thing about it is that there's not like a low ceiling on it. Like as soon as you're through the pathology, like, you're done with mindfulness. Obviously it's helpful at any level of struggle or lack of struggle. And like not missing your life and not missing the people in your life, for me is one of the best things about it.
I love that you bring mindfulness into therapy. And you make it really accessible in your book. You don't make it seem like something that only people with years of training or certifications in yoga can access, that all of us can access it. You had said, hey, it's not part of any religion. There's no religious practice tied to being present. We're all human. We all have access to this present moment. We just, we could choose to access it. But what, from a clinical standpoint, you said getting out of our thoughts and getting present to the moment. When we're in our thoughts, they're usually of the past, which is what's happened in the past. And this can lead, if they're negative thoughts of the past, can lead to depression or sadness, that things have changed. Or they're thoughts of the future, which is where a lot of our anxiety and our worry come from. Because again, negative automatic thoughts, these thoughts are typically what could go wrong in the future.
Right.
And that if we get out of the mind and out of the thoughts and get present to the moment, that we're going to reduce that depression and that anxiety. Is that an accurate way of thinking of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And in a similar way, anyone dealing with stress, I think, can find mindfulness helpful. I'm sure you're familiar with mindfulness-based stress reduction. It's a popular training program. But even if a person doesn't do a full course on it, there's just something about the mind's ability to imagine problems that's pretty much infinite. Like you can think of an unlimited number of problems, and you can only solve anything right in the present. So there's that mismatch generates or amplifies so much of the stress that we feel. But if I restrict my energy and my focus to what's actually in front of me, what I can deal with in the present, then that just sort of circumvents so much stress. Because if it's not now it's kind of not my problem.
Because we can't do anything about it if it's not right now. And so now it's outside of our locus of control, which is just going to lead to stress, which is going to lower our performance in this moment anyway, and going to make us unhappy. So there's not a whole lot of good in it. I've been practicing forms of mindfulness now for over 10 years. For our listener that's dipping their toe into it, how could they get started at becoming more mindful?
Well, I mean, meditation practice is an obvious way. There are all kinds of free online guided meditation, like audio meditations a person can do. I also just like really simple activities throughout the day, like maybe pausing before a meal, like at each meal, and taking 3 breaths with conscious awareness. Like what I often do is I'll sit down, and with the first breath, I'll just sort of take stock of like, where's my, like what's up with my body? Like what's the kind of vibrational energy in it? Is there stress anywhere? And with the second breath, I might look around at the people that I'm eating with, just kind of take them in. And then with the third breath, I think of it as kind of like beholding the food in front of me, and the smells and the sights and the colors. And then just eat. But even those, something as short as that, like 20 seconds, can kind of set a different tone for experiencing something, as opposed to coming in kind of mindlessly and I'm done with my meal before I even realize I started.
Who has time for 3 breaths?
It feels that way, doesn't it?
Oh, man. But what you just described is such a beautiful, practical way. Because I feel like we have to train for it. We have to train in a practiced way how to become mindful, so that when a stressful event happens, which is going to happen, then you go back to our training and become present in the moment of the stressful event. If we don't train because, I don't have to train, there's nothing stressful going on before this meal, then later when the stressful event comes on, my mind could run away with anxiety and fear about what's going to happen there. So I love the 3 breaths before you eat. Everyone has time for 3 breaths before they eat. We all do. It's 20 seconds, as you just said. This is not long. Such a practical way. For me, I just take a few breaths each morning with my coffee. It's my routine. I've had many different meditation routines, and have used different apps and different audios and different programs over the years. But just for me, what's simple right now is that when I'm having my coffee, 5 minutes of mindfully breathing, and I always end it thinking about this present breath and this present moment being a wonderful moment. And I'll take a breath in, and I'll be thinking this present moment. And as I'm exhaling, I'm thinking this is a wonderful moment. And I always feel it at the end of the meditation. I'm always feeling that like in the moment, that breath, I'll hear the birds chirping. I'll feel the sensations of blood rushing into my hands and tingling sensations because I've been breathing deeply. I'm like, this is a really wonderful moment. I look at that daily training as later in the day when my mind's racing about something, that I can come back to knowing that moment too is a wonderful moment.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. I love the ritual part of it. I think pairing it with your coffee is a really nice thing because, just like as an atomic habit or something, it's a very, very strong paired experience, a strong cue. And also that it's opening your eyes to seeing things that you might, or you would probably ordinarily miss. Like that actually there's something wonderful that's already here, but we're inclined to miss it if we don't deliberately pay attention. That's part of the CBT aspect that I try to bring into the mindfulness practice, is using things like reminders or deliberate scheduling, putting something in a calendar, so we don't have to rely on things like, I have to remember to remember. Like just, make it easy, make it fairly dummy proof, so that you're prompted to remember until if and until you develop a habit around it.
So for our listener that has some negative automatic thoughts, and maybe they're stressed out this week, what is something you would recommend to them to do this coming week just to feel a little bit more happy?
I would say to start with, each day for maybe, let's say Monday through Friday, just take note of 3 times and actually write them down. 3 instances when a thought or a belief is contributing to your stress. Just notice what the thought is. Get into the habit of noticing the association between your thoughts and your feelings, in this case, your feelings of stress. And then a person can build on that to start to challenge some of the unhelpful thoughts.
I'm fully on board with cognitive behavioral therapy. I know the link for myself that when I'm thinking stressful thoughts, I'm feeling stressful emotions, and that I can at any moment change what those thoughts are, and my feelings always change. But I've been doing a lot of work like this for a long time. So for our listener, this is a really wonderful exercise. If you're feeling stressed out, just write down what the thought could be that's contributing to it. You'll start to become mindful to it. Seth, thank you so much for coming. If someone wants to learn more about you or your work, where can they learn more?
Probably the best place is just my website, sethgillihan.com, SethGillihan.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. If your mind has ever spiraled into self-doubt, stress, or guilt, today's episode was a reminder that you are not your thoughts, and you don't even have to believe what you think. If you found something in this episode that made you feel seen, make sure you hit that like button. It's a way of affirming that you're committed to your own peace, your own presence, and your own sanity. Here are my top 5 takeaways from today's episode. Number 1, your thoughts are not facts. Negative automatic thoughts happen without effort, but that doesn't make them true. Once you see that a thought is a thought, you're no longer triggered by it completely. Number 2, challenge your thoughts with evidence. Ask, what proof is there that supports this thought? What proof is there that contradicts this thought? This cognitive behavioral therapy technique helps you replace distorted thinking with reality. Number 3, don't replace negativity with toxic positivity. You want to go for accuracy that's helpful. Saying, I'll be amazing, when you don't believe it isn't actually going to help. Try something believable and empowering, like, I've prepared and I'm going to do the best I can. That's a helpful thought that can counter a negative thought without being inaccurate. Number 4, the word should can be a red flag. The thought, I should be better, often leads to guilt, not growth. Replace should with I want to, I plan to, or I commit to. Number 5, mindfulness makes life richer, one moment at a time. Every single moment is a new once-in-a-lifetime experience. Once we realize that, we stop taking our moments for granted. Take one breath, take one bite, take in the person that's right in front of you. This is the last time you'll be in this moment with them. Enjoy it and savor it. This moment is wonderful. If you want to keep rewiring your brain for peace, clarity, and joy, make sure you hit subscribe. Each week, we bring you the tools and the insights to help you rise above the chaos and live happier. See you next week on Good Mood Revolution.